Hello, I'm Scott Paddock, Senior Vice President of External Affairs at Silver Cross Hospital. Today marks the start of National Volunteer Week, and we are incredibly fortunate to have a great network of volunteers who play a vital role in the daily operations here at our hospital. I'm joined today by Laura Valensic, our Director of Volunteer Services, and Ed Merzlock, a longtime volunteer here at Silver Cross. Laura, Ed, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
So Laura, I'm going to start with you. We have a long-standing history with our volunteer program that dates back many, many years. Tell us, how did the program originate?
Well, originally our hospital was founded by the Will County Union of King's Daughters and Sons. And so they're one of our first volunteer groups. And then we have the advisory board, which was born out of the King's Daughters, and they run our Encore shop. And we have Childerguild, who run our gift shop. And so they are available to us here. And then we have the in-service program, which Ed is part of with us. And our in-service program started in 1959.
Wow.
And originally it started with 25 charter members of the program. There were 25 women who came to the hospital to help. And in those days, they changed linens, they staffed the reception desk, and they delivered mail.
Wow, that's great. Long-standing history. So fast forward to today. How many volunteers encompass the Silver Cross Network, and what type of roles do they play for us here today?
We have over 650 volunteers in the hospital, which we are so delighted to have working with us. And they really fall into three different categories of jobs. There are clerical roles, where they may work in an office and help with clerical support. They may have people or patient contact roles, which are our main roles, and the majority of our volunteers fall in those roles. Or they may have physically active or labor style of work roles too.
Okay, good. And Ed, how long have you been with us, and how did you learn about the program?
Well, my first exposure to volunteers was actually when I was coming to the hospital as a visitor. What's the first thing you do? You walk up to the desk, you get a visitor pass, and that gave me a kind of a narrow view of what they do. And at that point in time, I wasn't in a position to really pursue doing this. But later on, I got a lot of information off of silvercross.org, a little more detail on what they did. And I started in December of 2015, so I just crossed the 5-year mark a few months ago.
Wow, that's great. We love having you here. And what inspired you to get involved?
The answer to that is something you'll commonly hear from a number of volunteers here. It's prior good experience with either themselves or a family member. My mother was in and out of here a number of times in her final years, and we always felt that the care level was well above average and better than we'd experienced anywhere else, and that was not lost on me. And I had been looking for a volunteer thing even back to when I first retired, and I one day decided I'm familiar with the place, look into it. 5 years later, I'm still here, so something must have worked out.
We're glad you're here. We are thrilled that you're here. And you know, Laura, Silver Cross always gets high marks in terms of patient satisfaction scores. And the volunteers play a big role in that. They interact with our patients, don't they?
Absolutely. A lot of times our volunteers are first to greet, whether they're in the parking lot in a golf cart, they're here at one of our desks, and often they're the last to say goodbye to our patients as they're leaving, or their family members that they're here. And so we're happy to have those experiences, to look for opportunities to create joy and to make a difference for the people we serve.
Yeah. And how about you? Any specific examples, Ed, of how you've interacted with the patients here at Silver Cross?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think that all we do down here is dole out, process visitors and route people for testing. We do a lot of other things than that. One of the things that I find gives me the most reward factor is that there's a lot of people come in the door here that are lost, scared, confused, stressed out, either because of maybe some procedure or test they're going to have, or maybe they have a family member here that's in some critical condition. And helping those people out is a big part of what keeps me coming back, because you can feel like you did something useful when you walk out of here.
Yeah.
And that's important. And the job also gives me a sense of purpose and actively engaged in something worthwhile.
Wow. Any particularly memorable story that you have to share from
there's
your
one
experience?
thing that happened a couple of years ago. I had an encounter with a 100-year-old. And I was passing newspapers that day because the regular guy happened to be off. And I was just about to go in this room, and the CNA was coming out. She had done vitals. And she told me that this patient had a birthday, and she was 100 today. Okay, I've never met a 100-year-old, I don't believe. So I went in and asked her the usual, good morning, would you like a newspaper today? And she said, no, I don't think so. I don't read so well anymore. Okay, that's a fair answer. Then we got in a little philosophical discussion. She said, I never expected to live this long, and I often wonder why I'm still here and what I should be doing. And I thought, this woman's got a handle on things. Most people don't think about that. So I gave her my philosophy of life's mysteries. I said, when it comes to these mysteries, I remind myself of the old line from the Peter, Paul, and Mary song, the answer's blowing in the wind. And there's a lot of answers blowing in the wind out there that we're never going to figure out.
Wow.
She looked at me and she said, you know, that's a really good way to look at it. I'm going to have to remember that one.
That's a great story.
And when I got done with the paper route, I came back here and I told that story to the rest of the crew that was at the front desk. We all got an uplift out of it.
Oh, that's great. How do you interact? What is the camaraderie like among the volunteers? Have you made some friendships through these relationships?
Yeah, it's a good group. It's a good group overall. Most of us are in the same age bracket, roughly. Most of us are retired. A lot of us are doing these things for the same reasons. The reasons vary, but we're on the same page pretty much. And it's just a good work experience. It's a good environment.
Yeah. So Laura, in addition to folks like Ed that are retired and looking for things to do, we also have a younger audience that participates on the in-service volunteers. Tell us a little bit about them.
We often see teenagers as young as 14 that come to join us and who are interested in healthcare careers. So you may see people through high school or college or even into medical school. We've had some active students. They look at this as a great area to test healthcare to see if this is something that they might like to work in or really to gain experience for their later years of school. And we often hear, and I've done this long enough now, that I have people come back that are doctors today or are nurses or are physical therapists. And it's so exciting to see them and talk to them and find out how they found their volunteer work so meaningful and how it set the path for them as they moved along in their healthcare career.
Wow. So some that started here as volunteers actually moved into healthcare and
Yes.
even clinical roles here at Silver Cross.
Absolutely. Every year we have several going off to medical school, nursing school, PA school, nurse practitioner school, nursing school, almost any career in the healthcare industry you see them heading to.
Wow, that's terrific. That's terrific. So, you know, my understanding is we've got one of the most successful and robust volunteer programs in the entire state of Illinois. I think you mentioned earlier, Laura, 650 volunteers.
Correct.
You deserve a tremendous amount of credit for that. What's the key? How did we grow it to be so successful, and how do we maintain that?
Well, you know, first I would say Silver Cross is a very special place, and our culture that we hold very dear here shows in the volunteers. And as you heard Ed tell his story about his mother being a patient here and having that experience coming here with us, he felt, you know, I wanted to come back and give back or make a difference here. So we see that a lot. We work hard to make good matches. So we look at when the person's sitting with us and interviewing, we find out, you know, what's their interest, what motivated them to come here. And I like to call it the sparkle in their eye, and I look for that. And I try to see when that sparkle hits, I know it while I'm interviewing them. And that's how we place them, because our best success is if I can place someone in meaningful work, and so they feel they have purpose and they're making a difference. That'll be success for all of us, and so we really appreciate that. And then I'd add that Ed said a lot of our volunteers come from similar walks of life. They retired, they want to give back, or they're young people wanting to learn everything they can about their healthcare career, and they build camaraderie and friendships. And that really helps in the way we work together, and we try to have fun and serve our guests.
Wow, that's terrific. So, Ed, you know, you probably heard about this Silver Cross culture that we believe is pretty special.
Yes.
How would you define that? What does that mean to you?
It's enjoyable. You look forward to coming here, and on top of that, you can do some good for people.
Wow.
So it's a combination of things. There's worthwhile results to coming here.
Well, we appreciate you for sure. So,
Absolutely.
Laura, Ed, thank you very much for joining us.
welcome.
And,
Yes,
and
thank
to all of our auxiliary volunteers as well as our in-service volunteers, thank you for the vital role you play at Silver Cross Hospital. We couldn't do it without you. Happy Volunteer Week.